everybody, and here's the first segment of the 2016-2017 OHL season of Attack Wrap. I'm Matt Sanderson. John Morris is with me here, and we're going to be doing the majority of this year's Attack Wrap. It's a little bit different. Having us here rather than the longtime vet of Manny Pavas, so we wish him all the best as well, being over there in Windsor. Interview that we have today with us is Alan Letang. Alan, thank you very much for being in studio.
Thanks for having me.
So everybody wants to kind of know about, first of all, your background with things. You came over from the KHL, and you had a lot of experience there, playing for multiple years and then even coaching. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great experience. I had a pretty long career, an enjoyable career, both North America and in Europe. I went over to Europe the last lockout. I think it was, forget the year now.
2011.
Yeah, something like that. I went over to Germany. I went through Germany, went through Austria for a bit, and I wound up in Croatia, in Zagreb, Croatia, which was a little bit of an unknown city for hockey. They were just kind of developing hockey. It hadn't been there in probably 20-some years. So it was a strange situation where I get a phone call from an ex-general manager that I know, and he's like, "I'd love you to come play hockey in Croatia." And I'm like, "Croatia? Yeah, this is the last place I'm thinking I'm going to play hockey at." Yeah. At the age I was at too, I was right around I was right around 30, 31, 32, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to take a gamble at going to Croatia. But the more I talked to him, and he was a GM that I really respected, and he kind of came forward and says, "Listen, we're trying to build this team and this city, and this culture is thriving for some sports, and you're going to come over and hopefully you can kind of be, I don't want to say a poster child for it, but just kind of come over and be a part and help everyone kind of develop it." And it's worked out unbelievable. I enjoyed my 7 years there. I wouldn't change a thing.
And Croatia being like we talked about, it's a city that has to do with a lot of sports, and like, how much did you see hockey grow from the time when you first got there to the time before you left? Even maybe you noticed it more coming home each summer, and then when you go back, just the hype around the game.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. But I think right from day one, like our first season there, we were in the Austrian League, and we sold out every game. So we had a 52 game schedule. We sold out every home game. They put on shows where we did a game in the Coliseum down in Pula, which is an outdoor game they put on in this Roman amphitheater, and that was pretty amazing. But I really noticed it at the grassroots. With my kids going over there and playing hockey. My son was playing hockey over there, obviously, and he would go out to practice, and there'd be maybe 19 kids on the ice, maybe 15 kids one day, and then the next season when I came back, all of a sudden there's 50 kids on the ice, and then all of a sudden they're overwhelmed with just with the popularity of Medveščak, and there was other clubs in there, Mladost and Zagreb, and those kids started coming out to those. So I think the biggest thing was now all of a sudden these kids that wanted to play a different sport had people to look up to, and they could go to those games, and they saw the excitement of the games, and saw how hard we worked, and the passion and the excitement of the day, and they went out and were a part of it, and it grew from like I said, 19 kids to almost 50 kids on the ice, and that's a lot of kids on the ice that are just picking up the game, and it was pretty impressive.
What do you think was definitely the biggest change for you, moving from a place like that in the KHL with a good organization now to OHL? You have a little bit of you're going from coaching adults or older men to young guys.
Yeah, it was a transition that I knew was eventually going to come. As I transitioned from playing, going into a coaching role, I was glad I got to do that there, and they let me kind of feel my way around the coaching ranks, because it's not like you just quit playing and all of a sudden you're a great coach. There's a lot of stuff that you got to pick up. You got to learn to adapt to players. You got to there's systems, and there's all kinds of managing stuff. So I had the 2 years to kind of feel my way through under some great coaches. Mark French was there, and I had Doug Shedden and last season with Gordy Dwyer. It was great when the two of us kind of ran the ship around there, and it was a great experience. So I knew at some point I would have to come back to North America and proceed and progress as a coach and kind of get better. And I always had that passion to come back and to see where it would take me. So I knew you can't stay in Europe for 15, 16 years and you lose connections over here. You lose touch with players you've talked to or guys you've played with. So I knew at some point I'd have to come back, and knowing just the level and the caliber of the OHL and even the Ontario Hockey League or the Western Hockey League, it's such a great league, and it's a great spot to start from. And you see lots of coaches moving on from the OHL that are going right into the NHL or going right into the American League. So at some point I had to come back and make those connections again and just prove that I was coming back from Europe, but I was still a guy willing to work and a guy willing to learn.
I hate to jump back and forth on here, but just for you guys at home, because I mean you hear Croatia, but I wasn't a geography major by any means, so it's about here, and Russia starts about here and takes over most of the rest of Europe.
Yeah.
And so you hear stories sometimes about the KHL, how it's not like it's a little iffy. You hear stuff like that. You've seen the Ryan Whitney Players Tribune article, things like that. How, like the travel, things like that, where did that rank compared to maybe where you thought it would be?
Yeah, I mean, that was a huge, surprise, and as a team, it was a major hurdle to adapt. We went from playing in Croatia, and the closest team to us would probably be maybe Slovan Bratislava, which is like a 4.5-5 hour bus ride. So we would do that kind of a thing. But most of our flights, we were flying into Moscow, which is like a 3-hour flight, and then you automatically get a 2-hour time change ahead right away. And then so Moscow, I think there's 9 teams or 8 teams in the KHL, and so you would base yourselves around Moscow for a few trips and then come back to Croatia, and then you would fly maybe into Siberia or Novosibirsk, and that's an 8-hour flight maybe, and it's a 6-hour time change, and then there's 2 or 3 teams around there, and then when you go all the way to the Far East, Vladivostok, Khabarovsk, and this year Beijing has a team. It's a 9-hour time change, and you're actually closer to flying to Vancouver and flying home than you are to fly back to Zagreb. So flying from there is a 16-hour flight home with stops and refueling. So the biggest thing was the time adjustment. So we would fly into some of these cities, and a 7 o'clock game their time is like playing a 10 o'clock game our time. So if you're getting guys up for a pregame skate, or if you're getting guys up for a meal, sometimes they're waking up at like 5 in the morning and they're not sure. So that was the biggest thing, was to keep a schedule and keep these guys on a routine, because when you fly, you can't adjust your body quick enough to get onto their time change. No, so there was some juggling we had to do as a coaching staff and as an organization.
Well, we'll ask you a little bit more after we get back from break, but definitely very, very interesting and exciting to have you this year for the Attack. So we'll be back here with more action here, Rogers TV.